Hello everyone, welcome to Options with Doug. And thank you very much for joining me today on this special Friday afternoon edition of Options with Doug. Next week, I will be back to my normal schedule on Monday and Wednesday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Bookmap Discord and the Bookmap YouTube channel. Before I get started, I need to go through the disclosures. General disclosure: all Bookmap Limited materials, information, and presentations are for educational purposes only and should not be considered specific investment advice nor recommendations. Risk disclosure: trading futures, equities, and options involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. Here's my contact information. The best way to get in touch with me is through Discord. My name on Discord is Doug P. Also in Bookmap Discord, there's an Options-Doug chat channel. You can post questions, comments, and content related to the topics of my presentation and the topics of the channel that I'll go through in just a moment. I'm also on X. My name there is @Pless. Here are the key tenets to my approach to trading. I believe that options trades and market maker hedging activity are key drivers of price in many stocks and futures. That certainly applies to the large cap tech stocks like the Magnificent Seven stocks, as well as the equity index futures like the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ 100. And for the S&P 500, SPX is the underlying index, SPY is the ETF version of that index, and the ES futures contract is a derivative of SPX. And when traders buy and sell puts and calls in SPX and SPY, market makers take the opposite side of those trades and they hedge their delta exposure with ES futures. And for the NASDAQ 100, NDX is the underlying index. QQQ is the much more liquid ETF version of that index. And the NQ futures contract is a derivative of NDX. And just like the S&P 500, when traders buy and sell puts and calls in NDX and QQQ, market makers take the opposite side of those trades and they hedge their delta exposure with NQ futures. And we'll certainly see examples of that today with both the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ. The focus of my presentation today and the focus of the Options-Doug chat channel is options order flow, the impact of options markets on stocks and futures, and the influence of market maker hedging flow on price action. I have a two-step process for trading, and the first is planning, and I use positional analysis. I look at how traders and market makers are positioned in the options market and how those positions change from day to day to develop a thesis regarding expected trading range and volatility for the day, as well as the directional bias. And the second step of my process is execution. I look at real-time order flow in Bookmap and real-time market maker hedging flow on Spotgamma Hero to confirm my thesis and for setups. And when I talk about setups today, I will be focusing on the underlying asset. Setups in that asset can be taken with futures contracts, shares of stock, or options, depending on the asset as well as the way you like to trade. Questions and comments are welcome, and I will be watching both the Options-Doug chat channel as well as the chat and YouTube for your questions and comments. Please feel free to post. I'll do my best to answer your questions. Hello, Mark. Welcome. Glad you're here. Glad to see you. Here's my agenda for today, Friday, August 8th. Normally, I talk about news items. There's nothing today, so we'll go directly into positional analysis. And then I'll review some setups earlier today. Then I'll take a look at the live market. And when I get to the live market, if anyone has any stocks they want me to take a look at, please let me know. I'll be glad to do that. And there's certainly plenty going on with stocks. Many stocks have reported earnings this week. There have been some great trades. So we'll take a look at some stocks that reported earnings yesterday and then this morning as well. All right, let's get started with positional analysis. Let's start with the S&P 500. I'm going to go to the ES futures and Bookmap. Let's take a quick look at some of the key levels. And really no Spotgamma levels in play for the S&P 500. Just some round number levels for SPY. 634, around that level, acting as support before the cash open, and kind of a good launching point for a long at the open. And then also the ES, upper daily expected move, acting as resistance. Looks like the S&P 500 wants to test that again. So again, that is the ES, upper daily expected move. So after this bullish opening drive, ES has been trading at a range between SPY 635 and 637. And of course, the ES upper daily expected move. All right, let's step back. Let's take a look at the underlying index charts. Let's start with SPX in a 1 year, 1 day chart. And we'll take a look at recent price action, starting with the June expiration, resumption of the rally. So there was a pullback, and then the rally resumed after the June expiration and continued right through the July expiration, shown by this red vertical line. And then last week there was a bit of a correction, and then this week a recovery. All right, let's take a look now at a shorter time frame. Let's go to a 30-day 1 hour chart so we can get a closer look at the most recent price action. So there's that correction last week. Then on Friday, SPX found support in that zone right around 62.15 to 62.20. Rally resumed on Monday with a gap up. And now SPX trying to make it back up to the 6,400 call wall. And note, SPX did breach above the 6,400 level last week. And also this week, SPX did recover the 6,300 level. So now, SPX trading in that zone between 6,300 and 6,400. All right, let's take a look at the levels on this chart. I'm going to start with the expected moves. Dashed purple line showing the lower and upper weekly expected move. Based on the options market, this is based on the closing price for SPX from last Friday. And SPX is trading up above that level. And then the upper daily expected move shown with the dashed blue lines. Those change every day, again, based on the closing price for SPX from yesterday. I do post those levels in Discord every day, the evening before. All right, so SPX trading up above the upper weekly and daily expected moves today. And next target in sight is the 6,400 call wall. All right, let's take a look at these spot gamma levels on this chart. These are shown with the dark red lines. They're based on gamma-weighted open interest. They're provided to Spotgamma subscribers. I'm going to point out the key daily levels. First of all, the absolute gamma strike remains at 6,000. That's a strike where the largest absolute positive and negative gamma. So that's where most of the gamma-weighted open interest is concentrated. Next level up is the put wall at 6,200. That's a strike where the largest net negative gamma that can be expected to act as support. Not in play for today, of course. And then up above that is the volatility trigger at 6,340. Then is Spotgamma's proprietary volatility and gamma flip level. Below that level, market makers' position on the gamma curve is negative. In a negative gamma environment, market makers have to trade with price to hedge their delta exposure. That tends to enhance or increase volatility. Above that level, market makers' position on the gamma curve is positive. In a positive gamma environment, market makers have to trade against price to hedge their delta exposure. That tends to subdue or decrease volatility. Note that is based on Spotgamma's older legacy model, but it's still an important level. And then finally, the call wall up at 6,400 again. That's a strike where the largest net positive gamma that can be expected to act as resistance. And the only level that shifted higher, that shifted yesterday, from yesterday to today, is the volatility trigger. Shifted just 20 points higher to 6,340. So volatility trigger shifted slightly higher from yesterday. All other key daily levels remain unchanged from yesterday. All right, let's take a look now at a wrap up our view of SPX with a 1 minute chart. So here's the gap up on Monday, and then the gradual grind up this week, trying to recover from the drop the end of last week, and now this upper daily expected move. Let me zoom in on this. Upper daily expected move has been key level for today, and most recently acting as support. All right, let's take a quick look at SPY. Let's go to SPY. All right, so just like SPX, no Spotgamma levels in play. There is a combo 1 level up above, and then the volatility trigger at 630 well below. And for SPY, there was one shift higher in levels. The put wall shifted higher to 625. So again, well below price. And also key levels, round number levels, 635 on the downside. Then the upside, 637. And the S&P 500 attempting to break above that level. All right, so that's the S&P 500. Let's take a look at NASDAQ, NQ Futures and Bookmap. Let's take a quick look at the underlying index charts. We'll start with QQQ. All right, so QQQ has already recovered its highs. Key levels for today, right before the cash open, this 570, large gamma 2, and then a combo level just above that. Now it looks like QQQ finding a little bit of resistance at the 574 level. So just like the S&P 500, like SPY, there was a bullish opening drive, and then a pretty wide range. So bullish opening drive, and then trading at a pretty wide range. In this case, right around 2 points for QQQ, or around 41 points, 82 points for NQ after the bullish opening drive. And now it looks like QQQ trying to break above that level. Let's check NDX. All right, NDX key levels well below the call wall, volatility trigger down around 23,040 and 50. And I believe there's only one NDX level above this. All right, so back to NQ now. All right, so there's the QQQ levels that act as a support between 8:30 and 9:30. Launching point for a long up to the NQ upper daily expected move. Acting as resistance, NQ trying to break above that level for the third time today. All right, back to NASDAQ. And I forgot to mention, there is a difference in price between ES and SPX. And today it is somewhere between 20, it's right around 24. A little bit less, 23.5 and 24. I'm using 24. So for example, I'm showing the And there's that call wall just above, coming into sights now. So that's the SPX 6400 call wall, key level up above, and I'm showing that at ES 6424. That's that 24-point offset. And I do post those index relationships that I use every day in Discord. All right, let's wrap up our positional analysis. Then we'll get to some setups in the live market. Let's take a look at Gamma. So we're going to the Trace tool. This is available to Spotgamma subscribers. This is the Gamma heat map. It is showing Gamma in real time. Red shading indicates negative Gamma. Blue shading indicates positive Gamma. Let's step back in time a little bit. And again, this is based on Spotgamma's newer synthetic open interest model. So let's step back in time a little bit. Go back to, let's see, about 11 o'clock. So there was a pocket of positive Gamma up above, mainly focused at this 6400 strike here, providing a little bit of resistance earlier today. Now let's step forward in time again, and we'll see that positive Gamma, the blue shading, disappears. Comes back in, more resistance. Traders continue to buy calls. That purple line there is the hero signal. All right, the Gamma, positive Gamma up above, disappearing again. And SPX continues to make a run for the 6400 call wall. So we'll keep an eye on that. And the Spotgamma implied one-day move high, which is based on the opening price for SPX, is just below that. All right, let's take a look at some setups now. I'm going to start with the SP500. And as always, I'm going to take a look at what options traders have been doing today. So this is the hero signal. Looking at this is the S&P 500 index hero signal. What this chart is showing is options trades and market maker hedging activity in real time for the S&P 500 index components. That is SPX, SPY, ES, and XSP. The white line is price for SPX, and I've already separated out puts and calls. So we'll just focus on the call line, the orange line. So a rising orange line indicates traders are buying calls. They're taking positive delta positions. Market makers are selling the calls, and they have to buy, in this case, ES futures to hedge their delta exposure. All right, so that line has been rising all day and driving price. Traders buying calls. They're also buying puts. That's shown by the negative delta notional here and the falling blue line, but the call buyers are definitely, looks like they're definitely in charge today. All right, there's another hero signal that we can take a look at for the S&P 500, and that is the S&P 500 equity signal. So this is showing options trades and market maker hedging activity for all 500 stocks in the S&P 500 index. Typically is a little bit slower moving than the index signal. There are more components, but it is a very good directional, longer term directional indicator. And just like the S&P 500, traders are buying calls. And again, when traders buy calls, market makers sell the calls. They have to buy stock to hedge their delta exposure. They want to remain delta neutral. So in the case of S&P 500 equities, they're selling puts as well. You can tell by the positive delta notional for both of these signals. All right, so let's go back to ES now. Actually, let's go back and take a look at Hero. We'll zoom in just a little bit. So we'll take a look at, let's go back to the index signal, zoom in a bit. So this morning, very clearly a bullish opening drive. Traders buy calls. And again, traders buy calls, market makers sell the calls, and they have to buy, in this case, ES futures to hedge their delta exposure. So there were a couple of instances of kind of a call peak, call exhaustion, somewhere right around 10:05, 10:10, and then again at 10:35. So if you like to take that trade, the counter trend trade, there were a couple of nice shorts there. But the overall direction today is definitely long bias. So let's go now to S&P 500. ES futures. We'll zoom in a bit. Zoom in on the first 3 hours, 2.5 hours. All right, so there's that bullish opening drive. Test of the SPY 634 level and VWAP, that light blue line, as traders are buying calls. And price versus higher, little nice pullback entry, another pullback entry. And price moves higher. Another pullback to ES 6400, and then a move up to the upper daily expected move. This move higher, of course, was fueled by call buyers and equity put sellers as well as buy stop orders shown by the rising yellow line. And large traders were fading that move with iceberg orders, so far not getting their way. It means they were selling iceberg orders, selling strength and buying weakness is what they often do. All right, so there's the bullish opening drive. First call peak, just a pullback, and then the second call peak for a more meaningful drop. All right, so we'll keep an eye on ES now, definitely trying to break out above that upper daily expected move that has acted as resistance. So let's go take a look. Go back to Hero. Several flow alerts coming in on the index signal. Let's check equities. Rising slightly as well. All right, let's move on. Let's take a look at NASDAQ. And we'll get to some stocks, then back to live market. So this is the NASDAQ index signal showing options trades and market maker hedging activity for the NASDAQ index components that we looked at earlier, NDX and QQQ. So you can see call buyers driving price today, rising orange line, traders buy calls, market makers sell the calls. In this case, they have to buy in Q futures to hedge their delta exposure. A little bit of a call peak, call exhaustion, pullback. All right, there's another signal that we can take a look at for the NASDAQ. That's the MAG 7 signal. And essentially, the S&P 500 equity signal is the MAG 7 plus 7, plus 493, I'm sorry. Call buyers. And we'll take a look at several examples of MAG 7 stocks. So MAG 7 and then the S&P equities is the MAG 7 plus 493. Call buyers driving price today. So let's go take a look at NASDAQ now. Similar price action. Remember the support level at around the QQQ 570 level. Launching point for long. Break above VWAP. And just like ES, up to the upper daily expected move. And there's that key peak pattern just after 10:30 for a pullback to VWAP. just above these spot gamma levels, and then back up to the upper daily expected move. All right, any questions about the indexes? All right, let's move on. Let's take a look at some stocks. So this is a great move in Apple today. So this is, I would say, well beyond the normal ATR for Apple today. So let's see what options traders have been doing in Apple. So we'll go to Apple. And you can see call buyers driving price. Let's zoom in on this just a bit. And they were a little bit slow getting started. And it looks like some aggressive buyers may be in there first, and then the call buyers came in a little bit later. Key for today was this 220 call wall key gamma strike. So price did trade below that level just after the open. Found resistance there, then broke above. And I'll talk about this with Tesla as well. So this is the call wall breach. The call wall is the strike where large net positive gamma. That's where traders' calls are concentrated. So the assumption is traders long calls, market makers are short calls. As price moves higher, those calls move deeper in the money. Market makers' delta notional becomes more negative. They have to buy stock to hedge their delta exposure as those calls, their short calls, go deeper on the money. All right, so really nice rally in Apple today. Key price targets, high liquidity levels at 225. Those are limit sell orders in the order book. They were all consumed. A little bit of consolidation there. And then the same for the 230 level. All right, so there's Apple trading up above. Looks like trying to make it up to the liquidity up above at 231.32. I don't know if there was any specific news on Apple today. Could be just a follow-on from the meeting Tim Cook had with President Trump earlier this week. All right, so next major target up above is 235. All right, next stock, Google. Another bullish opening drive. Let's see what options traders are doing. Call buyers driving price higher. Full orders come in after the cash open. Signaling significant options activity. So there's a little bit of a pullback right around 940. Traders resume buying calls. Google moved higher. Again, there's a call wall breach. And as those calls go deeper in the money, market makers have to continue to buy stock. Call peak pattern really didn't play out for much of a short and led to more just consolidation. All right, so there's the next Mag 7 stock driving price higher today in the indexes. All right, next stock, NVIDIA. A little bit slower, bullish opening drive, but call buyers definitely driving price. Full alert, call buyers. Traders buy calls, market makers sell the calls. You have to buy stock. Let's take a look at, let's go back to Google. So there's that bullish opening drive, bit of consolidation with that call peak. then a move higher, and now consolidation. All right, NVIDIA, more of a grind higher, deeper pullbacks, so pretty small range for NVIDIA. Next stock, Tesla. Another very strong bullish stock today. So we'll zoom in on this. All right, so you can see that the price target's up above it, the zeros and the fives. High liquidity. Looks like those are limit sell orders. And it looks like in the case of Tesla, they came into the order book before the cash open. That's right here at 9:30. And they were consumed at 325, 330, and looks like some absorption at 335. Those orders were not consumed. All right, let's take a look at specifically at this 325 level. So Tesla, the 325 level is the call wall, and that set up a great entry point for a long. So let's zoom in on this just a little bit more. All right, so this is at basically at 2-minute slices. So we're looking at really about the first 15 minutes. So bullish opening drive. Let's see what options traders are doing. We'll go to Tesla. Zoom in on this. All right, so the call wall, of course, we expect to act as resistance. Price did breach above that level, then pull back to that level. Zoom in a bit more. Looks like call buyers briefly took their foot off the gas, and then they started buying calls again, and price started to move higher. And they were also selling puts, shown by the rising blue line. All of this helping to drive price higher. Back to Bookmap. One thing that I like to look at in Tesla is these trend breaks. So again, Tesla initially broke out above the 325 call wall, pulled back to that level, made several tests. Final test broke out above this trend line, and then continued up to the next liquidity level at 330 as traders resume buying calls. So another example of a call wall breach. And again, traders long calls, market makers short the calls at that level. They have to continue to buy stock as those calls go deeper in the money. All right, and we can confirm that. Let's take a look at and Efficient here says, how do we assess the put side? Well, traders are selling puts as well. But if you look at the delta notional here, it is a little bit less than half of the calls. So I would say call buyers really driving price in Tesla, but the put sellers are contributing as well. Let's take a look at Tesla and Equity Hub. This is the 320 strike right here, confirming the positive gamma in that strike. Yeah, let's go back to Hero. So we can shift to the total signal, which combines puts and calls. Back to Tesla. So yeah, call buying and put selling contributing to the total here. I just get a little bit more additional clarity and by looking at puts and calls separately. All right, next stock, AMD. A couple of very nice examples of call peak pattern. So there are several repeatable patterns in Hero. One I've talked about today, the bullish opening drive, and another call exhaustion. And then I've mentioned call peaks, and this is a great example. A rush of call buying, and then a sudden reversal from call buying to call selling. In this case, full alert. Which can often signal a shift in hedging flow, in this case from positive delta to negative delta, comes in right at the top, and that makes up a great short. So this very sharp call peak pattern is a very reliable bearish reversal pattern. So there's the first one in AMD. Let's go to Bookmap. So there's the reversal in AMD. The volume dots in Bookmap show market orders, market buy minus sell. Buyers are exhausted. That's shown by the green volume dots. More buyers than sellers. Then the sellers come in, shown by the magenta dots. More sellers than buyers. Falling cumulative volume delta, and price moves lower. All right, so that's the first call peak. Let's go back to Hero. All right, so there's the second call peak. Again, in Hero full alert signals a potential shift in hedging flow from positive delta to negative delta. And again, that's exactly what happened. Sending up a very nice short again, right around 12:15. Back to Bookmap. And there's that short right at VWAP. All right, next stock I want to take a look at. There were a number of stocks that reported earnings. One that was on my watch list, Rocket Lab. And interesting today, a lot of the stocks that were up, well, this happens quite a bit. A lot of stocks that were open pre-market down after the open. That certainly was the case for Rocket Lab. And note 50 is the call wall. So let's see what options traders are doing. Go to Rocket Lab. Zoom in. So the options in Rocket Lab, stock like Rocket Lab, not nearly as many options trade is in stocks like NVIDIA and Tesla. So often the hero signal is not going to provide quite as much information as those stocks. But this setup, you could tell or expect this call wall to act as resistance. And it took a little while for the call peak pattern to form. But traders, as price reversed, traders started selling calls with that reversal at the 50 call wall. And you can see the liquidity right there at 50. And looks like an absorption at that level. Those orders were not consumed. Then the aggressive sellers came in and price reversed lower. So that's Rocket Lab. Here's another stock that reported earnings, Tempest AI. Another reversal at the open. So it looks like, I believe Tempest AI did report earnings before the open today. You can see the reaction. And then we'll just focus on the open here. A reversal right at 65. And a drop down to 58. Very nice short setup. And let's see what options traders are doing. Let's go back to Hero. And I forgot to add a tab. So also pretty thin options liquidity. Zoom in on this. And the call peak reversal pattern not quite as clear as, again, AMD, stock that trades much more options. But traders did start selling calls. Price moved lower. 62 call wall and 60 key gamma strike. Now looks like that 60 key gamma strike is acting as support. And price chopping just above it. All right, back to Bookmap. All right, so there's that 60 level. Acting as support. All right, does anyone have any stocks they want me to take a look at? And Efficient Hair, did I answer your questions about Tesla? Let's go back and check indexes. All right, so ES is now broken above the upper daily expected move, headed toward the 6,400 call wall. You're welcome. Check NASDAQ. Also above its upper daily expected move. So resistance now, we'll see if it acts as support. Back to ES. All right, let's check Hero. Let's go to Hero for, go to the S&P 500. I'm going to shift to the total signal now so we can combine puts and calls. Go to the index signal first. So right at 2 o'clock, there was a sudden burst move higher in the index signal. Now a little bit of consolidation moving down. I'm going to shift back to puts and calls. Let's see what that was. So it looks like call buyers. Go to the equity signal. Continues to grind higher. Check NASDAQ index signal. Moving lower. Mag 7, of course, grinding higher. Let's check Apple. Let's see if it continues to move higher. So Apple, it looks like the bulk of the move today may be done, maybe stalling around 230. All right, does anyone have any stocks they want me to take a look at? Any other earnings plays? Back to ES. Let's take a look at Trace. All right, so still looks like this. So it looks like the positive gamma is building again at 6,400 as price moves up to that level. You can see 60 minutes ago, 20 million, 30 minutes, 19 million. Now 10 minutes ago, right around 29 million. So positive gamma building at 6,400, and it's a 90, just a little bit less than 90. Now it is at 99 percentile. So positive gamma just jumped up with the next next shift higher in the signal now. So now it's a 99 percentile strike. So Spotgamma has talked about one very familiar scenario where zero DTE options traders will drive the SP 500, SPX, to the strike with the nearest strike with the largest positive gamma, and that would be a 99th percentile strike. And that appears to be what's happening today, is that grind higher into positive gamma, that 99 percentile strike. And let's go back to Hero now, and I'm going to go to the SP 500, and let's take a look at next expiry as well, which would be the 0 DTE. So it looks like actually there's more delta notional on the teal line. That's the next expiry, which would, for the SP 500, would be the 0 DTE. Driving price today. Shift to puts and calls. So the green line is showing 0 TTE calls. Orange line showing all expirations. All right, I had to jump back. So this is the index signal again, showing the bulk of this. Call buyers are buying 0 DTE calls. Shown by the green line, orange line, again, all expirations, which includes expirations today. So the bulk of this today is call buyers, 0 DTE call buyers, driving price higher today toward that 6,400 level. The largest positive gamma strike on the board, 99 percentile strike. Mark has a question. Says previously there was a lot of discussion about that JP Morgan caller. What's happened in the market? That noise is less active. Knock stocks, but interested. So I'm not sure where the short call is for the JP Morgan caller, but that really comes into play at the end of the quarter. So we'll take a look at that at the end of September, and it should be certainly in play, or more important, as the September end of month expiration and the end of quarter expiration approaches. Kaitek, welcome, glad you're here. Wants to take a look at Charm. So let's do that. All right, so with Charm, this is showing buying and selling pressure due to time decay. And this is lining up perfectly. Thank you. Thanks for that question. So this is lining up perfectly. So we're looking for a zone of blue support below. Again, that's due to Charm, due to time decay. And selling pressure above. And that's lining up, vortex lines all lining up for a pin at the end of the day at 6,400. All right, again, Mark, Kite Attack, thank you very much for that question. Excellent point. And Wayne says, great job. Thank you. Thanks for your kind words. What would you say to someone on the fence about paying for Spotgamma Alpha? Definitely seems to work for you. Yeah, it does. So I would say give it a try for a month. That's the only way you'll know for sure. So I would do as much research and study as you can before, and then when you're ready, you can go to their YouTube channel, go to their help, make sure you understand everything you're looking at, you're ready to go. I know it's expensive, but after you've done your prep work, I would say give it a try for a month. And hopefully you'll be able to make up the cost of Spotgamma and a couple of trades. All right, so charm pressure showing that potential pin at the 6,400 call wall. Let's check delta pressure. So that is showing slight blue buying support below, and then red selling pressure up above, with the 6,400 level right in between. All right, back to Gamma. Back to Bookmap. And let's go back, check Hero now. Efficient here says, yeah, they need to purchase as well. Can we refer you? If you do sign up for Spotgamma, I used to have a referral link. I don't have it anymore. I'm not sure they're still doing that. But please send them an email and let them know that you found out about Spotgamma from me. So if you do sign up, send them an email, info@spotgamma.com, and let them know that you saw my webinars and you found out about Spotgamma from me. All right, the S&P 500 continues to grind higher with the 6,400 level, again at ES 6424. So maybe about 7 or 8 points away. Yeah, that's right, info@spotgamma.com. Let's check NASDAQ. See if it's still above its upper daily expected move. Slightly above. All right, still taking requests for stocks. If anyone has any stocks they want me to take a look at. Back to Hero. And I'm going to turn off next expiry. So the call buyers right now have taken the foot off the gas. So we'll need to see those call buyers come in again to drive price up to 6,400. Check the equity signal. So the call buyers have taken their foot off the gas as well. And Tom wants to take a look at Tesla. So, Tom, in case you missed the beginning of my webinar, or a few minutes ago, I did talk about Tesla. We can take a look at Tesla again. All right, Tesla made a peak, somewhere right around 1045. Absorption at the 335 level. Call buyers took their foot off the gas. We can go to Hero, check that. So that fuel that had driven price higher is gone now. And right now, traders are buying puts, shown by the falling blue line, and also selling calls. So here's the first call peak pattern. Unfortunately, no Hero alerts there, but call peak patterns, and then call exhaustion. So again, the fuel that had driven price higher is gone now, and Tesla kind of grinding lower. And Kite Attack asks, how do I set my hero? So let's take a look at that. All right, so I'm using the 1 day, and I just leave it at that. And I guess when Hero first came out, I did experiment some, but I just leave it at all day or 1 day now. And then the only thing I change, before the open, I have extended hours turned on so I can see the hero signal for the S&P 500 index. And then a few minutes after the open, I turned off extended hours. So that's the only change I make to hero. And then, of course, I shift between puts and calls and total signal. All right, so there's Tesla. Again, call buyers have left the building, and Tesla is now consolidating. Let's go back to the equities index, the index signal. All right, so it looks like that move up to 6,400 may be a little bit of a challenge, with traders starting to sell calls now and buy puts. Check equities. Same here. Go back to ES. And now breaking down below the upper daily expected move. And let's see what happens. See if that acts as support or price continues lower. So now ES needs to move up about 10 points to make it to the 6,400 call wall. Zoom in a little bit more. So we can see some aggressive buyers starting to come in now. Green volume dots moving back up. All right, next week again, I will be on my regular schedule, Monday and Wednesday, 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And note also, next Friday is options expiration, and we'll talk about that on Wednesday, get set up for expiration. And certainly it will most likely be a quite call-dominated options expiration. So we'll talk about that on Wednesday. All right, let's see if the options traders have started buying calls again. Let's go back to the index. So still not a lot of movement. Back to Bookmap. Let's check NASDAQ. Now down below its upper daily expected move. Does anyone have a question about where these expected moves come from? I just get these from an options chain and Thinkorswim. And note I do calculate the ES upper daily expected move independently or separately from the SPX upper daily expected move. All right, there's NASDAQ. Back to ES. Now let's see if that upper daily expected move acts as support. All right, last call for questions. All right, today we went over bullish opening drives and the equity indexes, as well as stocks like Apple and Tesla, and then very nice call peak reversal patterns in especially AMD and also Rocket Lab. Spotgamma says I'm sorry, Kite Attack says the expected move doesn't come from Spotgamma. No. I calculate kind of the traditional expected move from an options chain in Thinkorswim. So let's go. And then I also look at the Spotgamma implied one-day move higher and low. So the expected moves that I look at, let's go to an options chain for SPX. So what I'll do at the end of the day, after SPX closes, and I do the same for ES and NQ, I'll look at this number right here. So it's going to be after the close. And then that shows right now for next week, plus or minus 92.5 points. And I'll add that and subtract that from the closing price. And I do that separately, independently for SPX, ES, and also NQ. And actually, I have this study in Thinkorswim. I got it from somebody else. I can't share it. That shows the expected moves. So actually, this is where I get the weekly expected moves for SPX with this algo, right? This ThinkScript. And Javier asks, what are the three colored lines at the bottom? All right, so this is, first of all, cumulative volume delta, the magenta line. That comes with Bookmap, all versions of Bookmap. And then the yellow line is showing stop orders. Rising yellow line indicates buy stop orders. And then the light blue line there indicates iceberg orders. And that is part of the MBO bundle, which is an add-on for Bookmap. All right, everyone, I want to thank you very much for watching. Thanks for your questions and comments. Everyone have a great weekend, and I will see you on Monday. Thanks again. Bye.